who, despite the odds, the lights never get any brighter than on a Grammy stage, but the glare can also reveal things nobody is ready to see. Do so when federal agents rolled armored trucks onto Sean Diddy Combs' Miami driveway in March 2024. The millions realized the industry's after party was finally over. For 2 decades, finally over. The same rumor kept echoing R. Kelly. Yesterday, Diddy today. If the math holds, jayz tomorrow. Heroes. Cue the odds. Suddenly the gossip sounded less like bait and more like an arrest warrant being printed in real time, and most hip-hop icons survive by believing they're untouchable. Heroes who, despite the odds. Kelly thought so until racketeering charges smashed his tour schedule. Diddy seemed certain the world would forget a growing pile of NDAs, despite the odds, and jayz, with $1 billion brand and a phone full of governors, looked insulated by the very institutions that once needed his cultural approval. Despite the odds, but indictments have a domino logic: approve an enterprise, then flip its neighbors. The everydayer, despite the odds. That's why prosecutors keep checking past convictions when they describe the new one now unfolding on the Manhattan docket. Despite the ask industry veterans about 1994, and they'll tell you everyone in the room knew R. Kelly was courting minors. To speak, the corporations just didn't want the tour money to stop. When video evidence finally surfaced, the label line was shocked, but supportive, until the courtroom lights hit and the support vanished. Fast forward 20 years, multiple women, despite the odds, including singer Cassie Ventura, accused Diddy of trafficking and violent assault. Despite the odds, behind closed doors, many executives repeat what they whispered during Kelly's trial. It's terrible. If it's true. That hedge buys time, but it doesn't buy absolution. The odds, see. What glues these stratas together is the strategy insiders call mutual silence insurance. If the star in trouble once helped another star dodge headlines, neither will speak when the tables turn. For 2 decades, jayz rarely uttered a syllable about R. Kelly's predatory record. Even after surviving R, critics now see that hush is less loyalty than self-preservation. The odds adds any public condemnation might invite blowback on collaborators who shared his inner circle. Allegedly, the everyday, that same circle is where federal agents just found something bigger than gossip: a hard drive cataloging dozens of hotel nights of the code prosecutors say Diddy's staff used for correspond. Despite the odds, it's filmed encounters. But the chain reaction doesn't end with Combs, everyday heroes, because those documents filed under seal last month suggest the government is tracing payments between bad boy entities and contractors who also work private events for Rock Nation. If even one transfer funds a criminal act, prosecutors can argue a joint enterprise. So the legal link that allowed him to drag peripheral managers into Kelly's Ragacido case, the Miami and LA raids look cinematic. Full SWAT gear drones, despite the odds, armored Bearcats, but court filings paint a simpler picture. Homeland Security agents executed a search for digital media, financial ledgers, the everyday odds, and pharmaceuticals banned without prescription. Sources close to the case say agents hauled away 14 encrypted drives and hundreds of mini-V tapes. Several contain the same scenario. Witness, Jane. Described under oath this June, multiple women, heavy cocaine use, and a camcorder rolling on a hotel suite coffee table. Jane Chua testified those sessions turned coercive once participants realized leaving meant losing future work, or worse, becoming targets of hush money threats. Prosecutors' hope to prove Combs wasn't just presented illegal acts but orchestrated them for profit and leverage. That distinction matters. Who, despite the odds, the facilitation is a crime, but directing a ring raises it to racketeering, opening the door to seize assets stretching beyond music, spirits, brands, and everyday odds, fashion holdings, even streaming residuals. Yet whispers inside the courthouse say the indictment still has an empty slot. If the everyday juror conspiracy charge almost requires a high-profile code, defendant illustrate inter-label overlap. Which explains why every lunch break chatter outside the courtroom drifts to one question: is jayz the missing piece? The government hasn't named him, but their method offers clues. Cases built under Raikyo begin narrow, nail the central figure, then branch out. With Kelly, Herods, who, despite the odds, prosecutors started with 2 managers before adding label executives once phone records, proved they booked underage travel. The odds, Diddy's tree already spready Sprouts, parodies to Sprouts, similar Lindems, a former head of security, a one-time tour accountant. Despite the odds, and a production assistant have all been listed as own-indicted co-conspirators. Add financial transactions to a second music mogul, and the web widens fast. A few headlines travel faster than 13-year-old accuses rap titan. So when an anonymous plaintiff filed a December 2024 suit claiming both Diddy and Sean, jayz, Carter assaulted her after the 2000 VMAs, KVMBL dispanels at Keypanels ignited. jayz legal team attacked the complaint with forensic precision, despite the odds. Tour itineraries placing good Charlotte hundreds of miles away contradicted the girl's memory of chatting with Benji Madden. Despite the heroes, radio shooting permits showed no jumbo screen outside that evening. Cell tower metadata undermined timelines. By mid-February, the plaintiff withdrew her case with prejudice, sparking jubilant tweets from Rock Nation and trade press chyrons reading, "No settlement," and despite the odds, total vindication. Yet veteran litigators remind anyone listening that dismissal doesn't equal exoneration. It simply closes that pleading. Crucially, despite the odds, discovery would still force both sides to file evidence under seal. If any of those exhibits overlap with material seized at Combs' homes, despite the odds, prosecutors can petition to transfer them into the criminal docket. Every day, yet its multiple outlets report that at least one USB catalog from the Diddy raids references jayz's name, though its contents remain sealed. Despite the odds, and public opinion splits along a jagged line, supporters call the lawsuit extortion and note jayz's rapid rebuttal. Skeptics counter that narrative control is Carter's superpower. Power every time controversy sparks. He launches a philanthropic headline, despite the odds, her art auction partnership or a halftime show spotlight bright enough to chase shadows. But the judiciary doesn't grade on brand management. If sealed footage shows Carter participating, knowingly or not, in a criminal scheme, despite the odds, prosecutors can invoke the same right clause, now chaining Combs to his own marketing empire. Legal analysts also point to a historical wrinkle. jayz fought previous civil claims through private arbitration, often ending in confidential settlements. The odds of choosing scorched earth litigation this time signals confidence or desperation. Either way, despite the odds, it means more sworn testimony if it procures to mine if they decide to expand the indictment. An expansion seems likely because parallel investigations rarely stall at half-truth. The Justice Department thrives on stepwise pressure, squeeze a co-operator, you unlock a stash of emails, then follow the money until a new suspect appears in bold type. The person holding that pen right now is a singer critics once dismissed as a conspiracy crank, Jaguar right. Her claims, her evidence packet, despite the odds, and her recent grand jury appearance form the hinge where part 2 of our story will swing open. Every heroes, despite the odds, Kathy White's name appears only twice in official jayz biography, both times in footnotes about nightclub premieres. Despite the odds, yet every investigative file on this case devotes an entire chapter to her last 10 days alive. By August 2011, Kathy was running a boutique PR firm that placed models on magazine covers and smoothed red carpets for A-listers. She also, everyday heroes who, according to friends, kept a private folder of text threads and photos that could sink a power couple if leaked. Despite the odds, on a Wednesday she rang veteran reporter Liz Crokin and flatly denied any affair with Sean Carter. By Friday, Crokin mailed her a photo from Tao, Vegas, Kathy laughing between Diddy and jayz. The next call was different. "Let's meet," Kathy said, despite the odds, hinting she was ready to talk if the story stayed bigger than gossip. She never made that meeting. The odds, early Sunday, a 9/11 dispatcher logged a medical emergency at Kathy's apartment. By Monday, the coroner listed the cause of death as a sudden brain aneurysm. Quite the odds. A autopsy image remained sealed, toxicology results redacted. Was it a coincidence? The timeline breeds suspicion. Despite 48 hours after Kathy's decision to go public, Despite the odds, Beyoncé debuted her pregnancy on the VMA stage, an announcement that instantly pumped the Carter brand's market value. The odds. The skeptics argue Kathy's silence was purchased by fate. Others, that fate got a little corporate assistance. Either way, the folder guarded has never surfaced. Investigators now compile digital backups, hoping deleted emails fill the gap a sealed autopsy left. In Section T's, but one person claims the folder still exists, and she handed to federal agents herself. Jaguar. Right doesn't do caution. Despite the odds, when she livestreamed claims that Jay-Z and Diddy shared more than studio budgets, many wrote her off as a jaded singer chasing relevance. Hughes. Then the raids proved least part of her story: secret footage, hush payments, coded ledgers, wasn't conspiracy vapor. Despite the odds, suddenly those hour-long rants looked less like tabloid fodder and more like a roadmap. Says she met 2 ex-security contractors in 19 who passed her a thumb drive of hotel suit videos. Despite the odds, she won't detail them publicly. The victims deserve first rights to their own story, despite what the odds, but she told a grand jury the same files tie at least 3 artists to the same coercive template: lure, intimidate, record blackmail. Despite the odds, Wright insists she delivered duplicates to the FBI in 2022, a full year before agents stormed Diddy's homes. Defense paint her as unreliable. She once described an attempted kidnap plot that police couldn't verify, but prosecutors value corroborated splinters. Even in a few timestamps on Jaguar's drive match the metadata from tapes seized in Miami, her credibility leaps from controversial to critical, and a critical witness can yank an enterprise charge across state lines. Despite the odds, is dropping it square onto any name listed in a matching guest ledger in Section T's. Which brings us to the chessboard prosecutors are quietly arranging behind the courtroom curtain. Every ratio indictment is a map. You start with one flag, then draw lines until the territory looks undeniable. In the Kelly case, that map linked concert buses, fake IDs, and studio managers. Despite the odds for Diddy, the anchors are cash withdrawals, travel manifests. The odds virtually coincided, and the raw footage labeled Hotel Night. But agents aren't stopping it by comms. They're tracking subcontractors who later build Rock Nation. Who won CPU here odds? The subpoena demands 2 years of invoices from a security firm that worked both the On the Run tour and Diddy's yacht parties. Despite the odds. Another targets PayPal micropayments routed to freelance videographers hours after certain hotel sessions. Then there's the iCloud warrant. The hero is for the former tour photographer backed up 26,000 images to Apple servers. A hash scan shows 15 overlap with thumbnails seized in Miami. Who, despite the odds, prosecutors haven't said who appears in those frames, only at the same bedspread and wall art pop-up in at least 4 different cities. Coincidence. Despite the odds, the finalists call it the ledger fuse. Once money crosses brands in service of the same illegal aim, the fuse burns straight to enterprise status. Who, despite the odds, if it ignites inside Jay-Z's paperwork, the billionaire shield shatters. Corporate lawyers can argue ignorance. Despite the odd, ignorance dies when metadata shows an assistant booked adjoining suits and an accountant reimbursed the bill. End Section T's. Despite the odds. But evidence is only half the war. Public perception can tilt juries before opening statements. Jay-Z has always been a master storyteller. Prosecutors, the diva, however, prefer bullet points to metaphors. The defense book is clear attack chain of custody, questionless motives, who despite the odds drown the internet in parallel headlines about philanthropy and billion-dollar sports deals. The ever-emptive, the odds. There's talk of a preemptive documentary challenging the government's timeline. Think glossy interviews, legal experts on retainer, despite everyday heroes, a soundtrack that subconsciously cue. A hero. The prosecution plan is less cinematic seat accusers whose stories align without coaching. The everyday hero that despite the odds lay snippets the jury can't unsee and follow the money. They don't need to prove Jay-Z masterminded every crime. Who, despite the odds, and they need to show he knowingly benefited from a pattern. One former label engineer is already in witness protection, despite the odds. Ready to testify he received cleanup bonuses after filming late night suits. A second witness A caterer can ID both moguls at a 2007 party where phones were bagged and a camcorder word non-stop. The civil rights advocates worry the spectacle could re-traumatize victims, and media theorists predict a cultural earthquake comparable to the 2005 Jackson trial, but with streaming platforms, broadcasting every sidebar in real time. Despite the odds, jury consultants warn that one viral clip, say a juror mouthing lyrics while walking into court, could trigger misterial motions. Hence the gag orders, the sealed fair, the dire, the metal detectors that chirp for belt buckles, yet somehow miss USB sticks. And section T's, who, despite the odds, and hanging over it all is the bigger question in why do so many gatekeepers look away for so long? Hip-hop isn't just a genre. Despite the odds, it's an economy that sells sneakers, streaming subscriptions, and campaign slogans. But so despite the odds, and control the faces of that culture, and you sway billions in annual revenue. That's why I say insiders, as Higard Hughes, who's the odds, whose bad actors could survive scandal after scandal, too many wallets depended on their uninterrupted stardom. Festival promoters ignored rumors, who, despite the odds, liquor brands amplified the glamour, and media conglomerates exchanged ad dollars for exclusives, not accountability. Now the appetite has shifted. Consumers binge docuseries exposing deception, and regulators feel emboldened by past victories. An everyday hero, the same Department of Justice unit that dismantled End of XYVM's cult finances, is advising on this case. Their theory: break the feedback loop between talent, despite the odds, of blackmail and brand sponsorship, and the industry self-cleanses the everyday despite the odds. The skeptics call it naive. They take down one mogul and another rises. But even cynics agree a precedent would make corporate boards vet partnerships far more fiercely, who, despite the odds, of which puts jayz on the edge of a verdict that transcends any single courtroom. So what happens next? Despite the odds, if jurors watch explicit footage that places jayz inside the same pattern already leveled at comms, racketeering amendments follow almost automatically. His assets, music catalogs, champagne stakes, sports agency shares could be frozen overnight. Streaming platforms might gray out entire discographies pending appeal. Sponsorships would vanish, despite the odds, and the billionaire who once bragged he could spend his grandchildren's money might find most of it sitting in evidence escrow. Should the drives prove inconclusive, another scenario unfolds. jayz walks, claims vindication, re-cements his status, despite the odds, and invests millions in victim advocacy foundations to offset reputational scaring. Diddy, stripped of co-defendant, bears the full brunt. A cautious sigh. But even that win would cost. Every unsealed deposition will live online. Every suppressed rumor now archived in federal PDF, and fans, once awakened, rarely re-enter slumber. Voters may also weigh in, literally. Despite the odds, Congress already hovers over a proposed bill forcing entertainment companies that gross above a threshold to file third-party harassment audits. Some insiders joke it's the Diddy clause, and the everyday heroes who, despite the odds, others fear it's an extinction-level rule for any label still depending on weekend retreats nobody can record. Kathy Weiss-Greston reads A Life That Inspired. What it doesn't say is how her ghost keeps haunting a billion-dollar empire. Emailed Jaguars with the phrase, "Truth has legs. Truth has legs." Prosecutors call their evidence vault, Section 404, after the federal code, that lets them admit prior bad acts to show motive. Despite the odds aids and three different voices, one echoes secrets don't stay buried. If part one taught us how dominoes start falling, part two shows how they accelerate in free fall. Despite the odds, whether jayz lands on his feet or under a gavel depends on footage locked behind a courtroom seal and on witnesses deciding today is better than never. That everyday heroes are despite the odds. So here's the question I'll leave with you. If the next hearing streams live and the exhibits roll on a giant monitor, do the people watching at home become the ultimate jury, one whose verdict can't be overturned? Drop your thoughts below. Share the clip and hit subscribe. The odds, because our next upload dives into the Kim Porter flash drive everyone swears is a myth until it isn't.